What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Davis, and today I'm joined with Connor Holland, another young entrepreneur who came from the state of Utah and is now living in San Francisco. A little bit about Connor. He's someone whose life is defined by obsession. When he gets into something, it completely takes over. And past fixations of his include everything from downhill mountain unicycling, which is something we definitely got to touch on today, Connor, Russian literature, rock climbing, spearfishing, and other fun activities outside. These days, his full focus is on building the smartest advertising AI in the world. Connor is the founder behind Leo, an AI system made up of a swarm of agents that manages the entire digital marketing cycle, from research and strategy to ad creation, campaign management, and optimization across platforms like Meta, Google, TikTok, and LinkedIn. He and his team live and work together in a 1,000 square foot hacker house in San Francisco area, putting in 15-hour days building and scaling the product. Leo currently powers marketing for brands spending as little as $2,000 a month and up to $200,000 a month, delivering fast growth, better returns, and eliminating the need for traditional agencies or in-house teams. Connor, thanks for joining us on today's episode, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brandon. This is great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, anyone out there who's watching, Connor, it's a little bit earlier in San Francisco for his time too. So we got the fun joys of the sun peeking up and blinding him in the face, but he's making it worth it. So we can all hear it from his wisdom today. So Connor, yeah, with that being said, let's jump into today's episode. So yeah,
Great.
let's start off. You have been a young founder for quite some time now. You've kind of always had the entrepreneurial drive. What got you into entrepreneurship to begin with?
That's a great question. I think it may begin in you know, some of my co-founders. I have two co-founders, right? They might roll their eyes at this because it's not very professional, but my first real endeavor with entrepreneurship was a jazz club called Jazzy Nuts. And it was, you mentioned I started in Utah, so it was actually in Utah where we did this, and it was a jazz and donut club. So
Okay.
there were there were lots of young jazz musicians who would come, and people would pay for entry, and we did pretty well. I mean, for it was while I was still in university, so for a young college student, it was really cool to actually build something, and this was just an event business, but it was fun to have people come actually pay for a service they wanted and would enjoy, and then keep growing it. So that's sort of where I got the initial taste. I was like, oh, you can just build stuff that people like and want to use or experience. So um, that was the beginning, I'd say.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I feel like most of the younger founders I have here on the podcast, there's usually something in their early childhood that sparked interest in entrepreneurship. Maybe that for me, it was the dumb things of like selling water bottles or fidget spinners at school, fun little
Yeah,
like, oh, I could sell something and people actually want to purchase it from me. Other times people have come on here and shared about like a family member that was an entrepreneur and they just got lit up when they heard about their stories and whatnot. Did you have any sort of mentor, family member inside of your life that kind of encouraged you towards entrepreneurship, or what was your background?
yeah, that's a good question. Um, I would say um, the coolest people I always thought were those who just were able to figure things out. Like, I think I was always very drawn towards competency, and it felt like the most competent people were those that um, could actually build something. And so I would say it was more of a turn off when I went into I did several internships at bigger corporations. I worked at Cisco for a while here in Silicon Valley, and I was just pretty unenthused by the prospect of being kind of a cog or supporting uh, maybe more of like a general infrastructure on a product I didn't I wasn't stoked about. So in the Cisco case, it was routers and switches, and so there were a few people early on. One of which was Brent Knutson, who I worked with at a private equity firm here in the Bay Area, and he had really this entrepreneurial zeal. He had started and invested in a lot of companies, and it was just cool to see how he had built all of these things, right? So everything that was sort of a part of his business world was something that he had direct impact on in building. It wouldn't have existed if he hadn't been there to create it. So he actually was pretty pivotal in Leo getting started, and gave us access to several of his businesses to test things out.
That's awesome. And yeah, let's dive in. I want to hear all the ins and outs of Leo. How long have you guys been going? How was your early customer acquisition strategy? We'll dive into all that, but give us the general overview of Leo. I read a little bit of it in your bio here, but for anyone who's outside the marketing world, let's hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of alluded to this, but we started at a private equity firm here in the South Bay. And so I was working with them out of school. And they owned and invested in a lot of these consumer packaged goods companies. So selling protein powders or baby food or at-home gym equipment, those sorts of things. And they had all experienced very negative sort of interactions with ad agencies. And I think there are really good ad agencies out there too. And we work with lots of ad agencies. But in this case, these were emerging brands. So they were, doing 5 million a year in revenue or something like this. Some were bigger, but a lot of them, they weren't huge. And so they had worked with agencies. They had sort of fallen to the bottom of their stack in terms of importance because they had lower contract value, right? And so they just didn't get the kind of white glove treatment and service they required in order to really scale their marketing. And so they had spent a ton of money with these folks, hadn't had any really good returns. And so when I came in there and was working with them at this PE firm, they were like, hey, is there anything that can be done from a technical side to or using AI in some way to kind of get the same high quality marketing we had hoped to get from working with these agency partners? And that's sort of what sparked the idea. And so my co-founder and I mentioned I have three, so this is one of them that came on. He had just finished his PhD at Stanford, and he was really focused on neural networks and had done some really cool stuff in AI, had already built a few kind of preliminary products. And so he was looking for an application, a use case, right? And so I kind of explained to him that these people were really looking for this concierge marketing service where you could have some kind of AI solution that would function as an agency would. And you had mentioned this in the intro, but that means, looking through their accounts, doing audits. And when I say account, I mean ad account, like their Meta account, their Google account, their TikTok account, figuring out why performance was lagging, why performance may have been quite good on certain campaigns, and then actually going through and building out the strategy, the content, publishing the content, and then managing it. So my co-founder, he was really the brilliant technologist behind this that was able to kind of figure out this whole product that would complete the full operation that digital ad agency would do, but be much smarter actually, because it can reference much deeper analytics and then also be on 24/7, right? Going through the ad accounts, making ad buying adjustments, creating new content, having new ideas, looking at the competitive landscape, all these things.
That's great. So from my understanding, where Leo stands, we're going to go in, we're a brand. And by the way, are you guys working with just consumer packaged goods, or are you working with all different types of brands at this point?
Yeah, so at this point, all different kinds of brands. Actually,
Okay.
more of our companies are lead based now.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. So I'm a business owner. Actually, let's take Interval for the example here. This is perfect. We're somewhat touching the digital ad space, so this will be a good case study for you, and you can kind of walk us through if we're on a sales call right now. That way, any of the listeners out there that run businesses, maybe this is your pitch right here, and you need to hop on a call with Connor.
Yeah.
So here at Interval, we have a few ads running, nothing crazy whatsoever, not a massive ad budget or anything like that. I'm kind of the one who spearheads that, but I don't come from a massive background in digital ads or anything like that. And we've kind of gone through the process similar as you. There's certain ad agencies that we have kind of liked, kind of haven't liked. There's always been kind of a little bit of a sour taste left in our mouths. There's plenty of them out there, like you said. I have a few buddies that work with service-based businesses that absolutely destroy it, and there are good ones. But to your point, I think the sour taste that I've always felt in my mouth is if you're not one of these brands who's producing, tens of thousands of dollars a month for the ad agency themselves. Of course, at the very beginning, for the first 3 months, it's the white glove treatment. Everything is looking really good. And then they go find a customer that is worth more money to them, and they slowly push you out the back of the corner there. Is that kind of what you guys have seen on your landscape as well?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, the cool thing about AI, right, is when you have a Leo, so Leo's the name of our agent. I mean, it's really a swarm of agents, but for most of the users, they just think that there's one AI they're talking to. And so the cool thing about having an AI that runs your marketing, it really exists to serve you. So it doesn't have any hobbies or any like passions, or it doesn't do anything else or have any other ambitions. It exists to serve you. So it's an intelligent entity whose whole purpose is to improve your return on ad spend, right? So unlike an agency, like you had brought up a great point. Unlike an agency who may get distracted with another client who has, say, a higher contract value than you, this one Leo that you have will be completely dedicated to your brand. Yeah,
Okay, that's great. So now, once again, let's walk it through interval. So I'm
yeah,
a new customer. We're a software company, right? We want to help people with their accounts receivable. It's a beautiful thing we're
yes,
solving here at Interval. So we go through, and like I said, we're running about 2 to 3 ads on any given week that are just kind of running in the background. They do good. I'm not a
yeah,
marketing guy though, so I'm not great on the data side. The
yeah.
most I know is, all right, we spent this much money to get this customer, and that's kind of the basics of what I know on the digital marketing side. Walk me through the process, how Leo could help Interval, or if we're not your best example, walk us through on a consumer packaged good, a service brand. Walk us through step A to Z on if I was signing up for your service or you're selling me right now.
Okay, great. Well, first tell me what your ICP is. Like, as far as you guys know, what's the ideal customer persona for Interval?
We work with all different types of industries, from home
Uh-huh.
services to medical to law firms to lenders and loan
Got it.
agencies. Our ideal profile though is you have to have over 50 invoices being sent out on any given month, and a heavy influx of those invoices on the repeatable business are going to go over
Got
bid.
it.
That's our ICP.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. So, um, you guys are running ads right now. You're focused on generating leads. Those leads, I'm sure, just plop into a CRM, and then your sales team takes care of them from there. Okay, so what Leo would do, right? You'd come onto our platform, and Leo would connect with all of those surfaces where you're advertising. So I'm guessing that's Google. I'm
We
guessing.
only actually touch Meta ads
Okay, okay, cool. So
personally,
that we
but
also support
for
Meta.
the sake of this purpose, let's go with all of them.
Let's say that you're doing Meta, Google, and LinkedIn. Okay,
Perfect.
so but I'll focus on Meta too. So say you connect your Meta account to Leo, and then Leo immediately is going to ingest all the data from your account. So you give it permission, and it's going to say, okay, I see every campaign you've run, every creative you've put out there, every piece of ad copy or the caption for these ads, and I understand how that relates to performance because all this data lives in your account. And then from there, Leo is going to start researching. So, in the same way you'd load something into ChatGPT, you're going to have Leo doing a competitive analysis on this data that's given as an input, but it's going to be happening all the time. So you're not going to be prompting it. It's a kind of chain of analysis that's happening. So Leo's going to say, oh, I see that their click-through rate was really high on this one ad campaign they had, but very low on this other one. Let's dig into the hook that they used in each one and see if there's something we can gather from that. And then it's going to go to the creative agents. There's another agent under here that's saying, oh, okay, well, let's look at this creative versus that creative. I'm analyzing the hook. I'm going to figure out what kind of messaging people are responding to right at the get-go of these ads. And so this kind of analysis, you can imagine, is just going to continue. It's going to look at the competitive landscape, say, okay, they have 3 competitors that have done this, and it seems that these ads are performing well. So let's see how we can apply that to this campaign. So this is all happening, and what you ultimately get from Leo's analysis is an ad proposal. So Leo's actually going to say, okay, based on everything I've seen, I want to do these campaigns. I have 4 campaigns in mind I want to run. Here are the creatives I've generated. So it'll actually create the content for you. And then it'll say, hey, do you want to publish these? This is what I think the result will be. And then once you give it the approval as sort of the most knowledgeable person about the brand and the direction of the company, it will actually push them to the platforms directly and adjust all the ad buying. So if there's one campaign that should now be deprecated as a result of this new campaign, Leo can do that too. If there's a certain budget change that you've approved, Leo can do that too. So anything that happens on the ad platform is now handled by Leo.
That's awesome. And it's across the board. It's for, say, I was running on Google and Meta, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the different brands. I could see all of that on one live dashboard. So I don't have to go back and forth between the 4 of them.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
awesome.
So when you come onto our platform, you have Leo, who you can talk to in a chat window, and then you have all of your performance data there. And this is actually chosen by Leo, so there's specific metrics that are highlighted for your business. So in your case, it'd be cost per lead, right? You probably wouldn't want to see something like conversions right off the bat because they're not happening, directly in this campaign. They're happening after you close the deal with your salespeople. So
Exactly.
so it'll curate all of that for you too, and then you could talk with Leo. So if you see that something like um, I don't know, well, we can continue on cost per lead. If cost per lead is unusually high, you could say, hey, Leo, like, what the heck's going on here? Why is cost per lead so high? And then it would go through every decision that was made in this campaign that could relate to cost per lead and how it's planning to improve that for you.
That's great. And I don't know if you guys have made this yet. Do you guys also work on the creative side too? Are you making the creatives for these customers of yours? Are you making the landing pages? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, great question. So on the creative side, absolutely, that's one of our biggest value propositions. So what you would do as if Interval were to use Leo, you would just dump all of the content you have, or pretty much everything in your asset library. So if you have it on Google Drive or SharePoint or whatever, it just all gets piped in and lives on Leo's server. So from there, it's going to go through, label everything, say, okay, in this piece of content we have X, Y, and Z. In this PDF, we have some good information that could be used in a LinkedIn download kind of ad we're running, get more information sort of thing. And then it's going to be able to use those effectively in the ads. And it'll also do AI generation itself. But the idea is it can repurpose and use a lot of this kind of unedited raw content you have to make super effective ads.
That's great. So now, what's your guys' biggest value prop when it comes to actually closing the business? If I'm
Hmm.
a business owner who has we'll say a marketing team of 7 people, if I want to
Yeah.
start using Leo, how are you going to close me right now?
Yeah. I think the main point is, hey, do you want to get better return on ad spend, and do you want to pay less money to the agencies who are managing that ad spend? Um, and so that's what we've done for all of our clients, really. We have higher return on ad spend for them. And then in terms of the management fees, it's much lower, right? You don't have to pay 5 or 6 humans, including a strategist, a data analyst, a graphic designer. You now have one sort of unified intelligence system that runs the whole thing, gets you a better return on the money you're putting in, and then also lowers these management fees, which are inordinately high, as I'm sure you know from working with kind of the traditional approaches to digital marketing.
Yeah. Are you comfortable talking about pricing? I'm sure it varies per company size and random things like that. But if there's a listener out here on the Get Over Yourself podcast today that's interested, what's the best way to kind of know about pricing and potentially get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the full management, so that includes like all the creatives you want, all the strategy, and then across all these platforms. So that's Meta, Google, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Amazon. It's $2,000 a month. And so when you break it down in terms of how much you'd be paying an employee, I mean, this is kind of what we hear from people generally. It's like, I was actually going to hire, several people to support kind of my main marketing guy who's doing the strategy and everything right now, but we can't really afford it. We're still like a growing brand, but we still want to spend on these ads, and we need to make sure we're getting the most out of our ad spend. And like, we would have dropped $15,000 a month on this, and then you bring in Leo, which is $2,000, and we have lots of case studies proving that the performance is actually much better. So that's been great for us. The close rate has been really high just as a result of that proposition with businesses who are ready to invest in their ads and are looking to expand, right?
That's perfect. Well, guys, yeah, if Leo sounds interesting to you, you think it could benefit your business, I'll include all of that in the episode description as always. So wherever you're listening to this episode, make sure to just check the episode description. Connor, jumping in a little bit further, I want to talk now that we got kind of the business perspective. You're a young
Yeah.
founder. It's something that could be very, very promising in a lot of ways, and I'm a big proponent of it. And then there's also a lot of downsides that we see, and I'm the one to preach it too. Tell me, what has your experience been as a young founder, and what are the kind of highs and lows that you've seen?
Yeah. I'd love to hear from you too, Brandon, because, I mean, I guess for a little bit of context for the listeners, Brandon and I are friends, but also kind of just meeting each other too. So it'll be exciting to hear a little bit from you too, for my sake. But yeah, On my side, I think it's been the best experience of my professional life, like which hasn't been very long, I'll admit, because I'm a pretty young founder. But um, I think the amount you can learn in a short period of time is crazy. Like to think 6 months ago, a year ago, like um, there are just so many things that you're totally ignorant about, and then because you have to learn them in order to survive, you do learn them. So I've loved it. It's been very tiring and exhausting. Like it's definitely hard, right? We're working long hours, not getting paid a lot. Um, there's a lot of pain associated with it too, and trying to keep customers happy, trying to keep people within your company happy. And then there's also like great successes with it too. You know, your team comes together and they're um, just stoked about the product. They're feeling really united as a team. You have customers who tell you, you know, that this is the solution they've been looking for the past 10 years, and you finally provided them with something that they feel can help grow their business in a sustainable way. So, like, I would say it's just the highs and lows are very much exaggerated, but I would prefer that. I think the excitement and sort of the satisfaction associated with it is just so worth it.
I agree. One of the best pieces of advice I got when I was
Yeah.
focused on my sales journey, I was working for a company at the time, and as a young founder, I think this principle applies a ton. Is sometimes you ride that roller coaster wave where you're on your highest of highs, but then you also have your lowest of lows, and it's really hard sometimes as a young founder to find that middle ground because in your short experience of whatever business you're running, it really is the highest of high and the lowest of low. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, and this is entrepreneurship as a whole, doesn't even have to be for a young founder, but the funny thing is,
Yeah.
you could experience that high of a high on a Monday, and then by Tuesday evening, you were feeling the low of the low, questioning why on earth
Yes.
you're doing something. And
Yeah.
so the best piece of advice I've ever heard on this, and hopefully this helps somewhere out there today, someone out there, is don't ride the highs, don't ride the lows. Find this constant middle ground. So if you're looking at on the case of a roller coaster, we're not looking
Yeah.
for the crazy. What's the fun one at in Disneyland? The California Screamin' or Incredicoaster, I think is what they call it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not looking for the one with all the ups and downs and the twists and all the loop de loops. What we're looking for is that merry-go-round that is just flat, and you just have those tiny little ups and downs, and you just go in that constant circle.
Yeah.
And as dumb as of an example as that is stuck with me so well. This was from a sales leader I used to work with, and I've tried to ride that wave because yes, you are going to have your big crashes, and you're going to also have your big ups at some certain points. And it's not to say that you shouldn't celebrate those ups, and it's not to say that you shouldn't reflect on those lows, and hopefully it molds your company and yourself into a better entity. But at the same time, if you want to keep progressing forward in your entrepreneurial journey, I think the best way is just to find that merry-go-round and kind of keep it constant.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great advice. I mean, it's like a piece of advice for survival. You're like, how am I going to make it with all these highs and lows? You gotta um, sort of have to find a steadiness. So that's awesome. Thanks. That's good advice for me.
Yeah, thank you. So, Connor, you also mentioned once you start something, you become very passionate and uber
Yeah.
focused on whatever activity it is. One that you specifically mentioned to me that I wanted to touch just as kind of a fun note as we close up here on today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast is the unicycling, the downhill unicycling. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, downhill mountain unicycling. For anyone who's interested, it's the best sport, I think. I think there are a few in terms of like extreme sports, surfing's awesome. Like I really like ocean sports as well. And so like kite surfing's really cool, but I don't think there is a an equivalent thrill when it comes to extreme sports when you look at downhill mountain unicycling. It's epic. So if you're interested in getting into it, there's a small community out there. I started in it when I was probably 12 years old, unicycling, and just with like one of those classic. What you'd envision is the typical clown unicycle,
Yep,
like a
of
20
course.
inch wheel, long neck, uh, and got really into that. And then I had a friend who did downhill mountain unicycling. She was one of probably the 1,000 person community in the world that does this, and so she kind of introduced me to it. And it's awesome. You ride these unicycles with
Hmm.
really thick tires, so like similar to those bikes, the kind of the fat tire bikes that people will ride on beaches. Um, with just a massive tread and probably a 26 to 32-inch wheel. And you can rip on them. Like you can do everything that these extreme downhill mountain bikers do because it's a fixed wheel. So you have like very tight control over it. But it's very technical. It's, pretty dangerous because you're on a unicycle. And so the probability of falling is higher. Just like
just
a
a little
lot of
bit.
the lot of exciting things. And then you also get to shock people. I mean, that's one of the best parts. You're on a trail with other mountain bikers and they're like, what? There's a lot of double takes that happen. So
I can
it's
imagine
awesome.
so. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, Connor, any final piece of advice you could leave for any other founders out there who are listening to today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast? Or if anyone wants to get connected with you on Leo, once again, everybody, it's going to be in the episode description below where you can check out their website, Connor's LinkedIn, everything like that.
Yeah. I think the best piece of advice is just to care about what you're doing. I think I interact with a lot of founders now. It's just kind of our community at this point. I'm sure you do too, Brandon. And like, the biggest difference I've seen is people who really care about what they're building and care about the customers versus those who maybe are working just as hard, but have uh, different motivations. So I think if you can find something that you really care about and build that, then it'll sustain you and you'll probably do something awesome. So just care about what you're doing and go all in.
That's perfect. Well, Connor, final question I have. It's the same
Yeah.
question I ask on the end of every single episode here on the podcast. I started the Get Over Yourself podcast with a very, very simple purpose in mind. I feel like nowadays, so many entrepreneurs and business owners and people who quote unquote make it in life, we'll call it financially make it, and in the Instagram world, they make it. But then the issue is, so many of them go on to ride the highs of their lives, and they don't offer anything back to their community. Their community gave them everything, and they didn't have an opportunity to give back to their community. So the reason behind the Get Over Yourself podcast is, how can we encourage business owners and like-minded individuals to not only use their talents that God has given them to grow up their business, but then give it back to their community. So when I explain that, Connor, what does the term "get over yourself" mean to you, and how do you think you could apply it as Leo continues to grow?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome, Brandon. Like, what a cool theme for the podcast, and probably needed, especially. Probably entrepreneurs earlier in their career may not need to hear that because they're humbled all the time. But those who are successful, like you're talking about, are definitely going to need that because there's just a lot of material success that comes with it if you can pull these things off. I would say, what does get over yourself mean to me? It probably means um, if you're out there to solve a problem and you're really out there to help people through whatever entrepreneurial endeavor you're engaged in, then you should maintain that even after there's lots of material success. So, I mean, we're here to help businesses sell their products and do it at a reasonable price, but get this awesome access to the intelligence everyone should have, really, to democratize um, uh, uh, excellent marketing services, right? And so um, I would say for us, it's like we want to maintain that. We don't want to, if it's in this business or businesses after this, we want to make sure that we're trying to serve this client, trying to give them the most value possible, and being focused really on the service aspect, how we can provide value rather than what we're going to get out of it. So I think every entrepreneur should be aiming to win with their business, make a ton of money, and then pour it into another business that's going to serve society. So those are the kinds of founders I really respect and look up to, not the ones who will buy massive beach houses and spend the rest of their days in a bubble bath, which just sounds terribly boring. So,
I
so
agree with you on
yeah,
that one. I agree with you on
yeah.
that one. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Connor. One last time, everybody, if you want to check out Connor or his company, all of that will be included in the episode description down below. With that being said, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thanks, Brandon.